firstdropmusic.com.
Hello, everybody. This is Barry Cole with From the First Drop, everybody's favorite podcast. Today, we're talking about actually some stuff that's going to be really helpful for independent musicians. I've got Jonathan Dewitt here in the studio with me. We're going to be talking about what he does for a living for the Paragon Music Group, which is basically helping up-and-coming artists. So I think this will be really great information, not only for anybody listening, but also for myself. I know I have a lot of questions and different things that I've noticed in the industry. Of course, with everything going on with COVID right now, we'll probably have a little discussion about that as well and how things are changing and looking in the future for the music industry. But Jonathan, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Bear? Thanks for having me out here. Appreciate to be here.
Yeah, no problem. So tell us a little bit about your position at the Paragon Music Group and kind of what you do.
Yeah, so I am the manager of the Artist Relations Department. I focus on both producers and vocalists, where we work with both of them, which is something you don't see very often. I work on the artist development, everything from curating sound, branding, social media, assets. I also do pitching for artists for getting their collaborations out there for both record labels and with other artists. And I am also starting up and kind of leading the charge on our record label, which should hopefully be up next year.
Cool. That's awesome. I used to run a small kind of boutique record label back in the day, and I loved it. And recently, since everything's gone down, I've had a little extra time. I started up a new record label,
Nice,
called the First Drop Music. But as I started going into it, I realized kind of the differences in the music industry these days, and how much some of the stuff that I used to do as the head of the label, artists just don't need as much these days. Distribution is way easier. You can use any one of tons of different services.
There's so many out there, and more getting brought up all the time. SoundCloud's even starting to do distribution, which is something to kind of look out for.
Yeah. They're doing distribution right through your SoundCloud account. And I just saw SoundCloud is now doing mastering as well, which, for independent musicians, that's awesome. But it's also, it's not going to be the same as getting a mastering engineer to go over your song. But when you're releasing music often, that's helpful. So what do you think is kind of the place for record labels in this day and age, and how they can help artists?
Record labels, like you were saying, a lot has changed with how it all fits. Especially with independent artists, there's so much pressure on artists to kind of control every element of the process of releasing music, because the more that you own yourself as an artist, or you end up being able to see that money back. Really, record labels these days, it's the best to be kind of an outlet, an opportunity to help see people be successful, and not just for the label. It's really important to be a partnership, which isn't something that's been kind of the precedence in the past. Now it's really, you see a lot with labels, they're being much more supportive towards the artists than just kind of releasing music and going.
Yeah, and I think one thing that a lot of artists maybe don't notice right away. I have been making independent music for decades at this point. Back in the day, getting a label was one of the only ways that you could really get your music out there. It was always a struggle for me, because the music that I make personally is usually very kind of diverse.
Right.
It could be even change genres completely from song to song. And it was really hard, because I know that one thing that a lot of independent artists get scared of is the record label controlling their image and what they're going to do and the type of music they're going to release. So I remember almost signing with a record label back in the day and having a meeting with them where they spoke at length about how I needed to concentrate on sounding more like Eminem because I was basically a Caucasian rapper, right?
Right.
So, and I was like, no, that is the complete opposite of the style of music that I make. That's not where I'm trying to go with my music. That was a hard part. But I can say that has changed a little bit. That I've noticed that, usually record labels are going to be finding an artist that's already sitting where they need them to be. And instead of trying to form their image, they're just really trying to help them get their music out there.
Absolutely.
And that can be so time consuming these days. Just trying to get, when you're already trying to, like right now I was on a schedule of trying to release at least one new song a week, right? That's a lot of work right there to make good music, get it mixed, get it mastered, get it set up on all of the different platforms that you need to, get it onto all those platforms, make a video for it, make sure that, you're already just worried about making a good song and making sure that it sounds good.
But then you have all the assets.
And then you got all the assets that you have to make and the collateral you got to make. Now you got to get it online and then you have to get it out to people and promote all of it. And that is the part that is the most time consuming. Absolutely. I think if you're spending 30% of your time making music, you're spending 70% of your time just trying to get it out there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's where the record label kind of comes in, is that they can take a little bit of that off your shoulders, build your reach a little bit for you.
Absolutely.
Kind of cut that time down. So in your experience, what at this point do you think, and in your role, are the most important things that you do for artists?
Oh man, there's a lot of different things there, but I think the biggest thing that I do is I kind of help create those connections with the labels and with the other artists to help kind of get that confidence in, because like you're saying, if you're making a new song, getting it mixed and mastered, and you're trying to do all of that, then you're trying to find collaborators, then you're trying to find record labels, then you're trying to create all of that. That becomes a lot. And that's really where a manager, like at least my role in management comes into play, is where if a song's finished up, we send it off to be mixed and mastered, or the artist themselves has their own engineer, or they do it. It depends on each project. But then my role as a manager is to listen to it, be like, you know what, this is a great fit for this record label. And then reaching out to my contacts, or if I don't have any contacts yet, is reaching out to the label, submitting it out for a demo, seeing what they think, and kind of building that for them to get it out there. So that way they can focus on creating the music and creating the content, and then we actually get it to the place that it needs to be.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you guys work mainly in electronic music and dance music, right? Yeah.
So our roster primarily works in electronic, dance music, pop electronic, hybrid crossovers. We've got one artist who also kind of branches into hip hop a little bit, but he's been doing a lot of stuff with like trap and kind of like that dubsteppy trap recently as well.
Cool. So that is a perfect segue into one question that I have personally. I also produce a little bit of, EDM, house, dance music and stuff like that, right?
Right.
But like I told you, I'm kind of all over the place with my music. I have a lot of different influences. So from song to song, I can switch a lot.
Right.
For somebody that's up and coming and really trying to focus on those styles of music, there is kind of a community for that, for sure. And then within each separate subgenre, there's definitely communities, right?
Absolutely.
And there's so many subgenres.
More than I can count.
Yeah. So how important do you think it is when you're up and coming to pick that subgenre or that genre and try to stick to it because like you said, then you know this person's music, what they have so far is going to be good for this record label.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you think that it's better to experiment all over the place and just try to get that specific song to stick? Whereas you might have a lot of different songs in a lot of different genres or subgenres.
So consistency is really key. Like I always hate having a conversation with an artist to tell them, don't be creatively free, because I love seeing what kind of music someone can make. But the problem is if you're trying to build an artist like persona and a brand, you need to make sure that there's a consistent sound and releases for both fans, because if you're producing heavy dubstep, right, and you're producing heavy dubstep and then regular dubstep, and then all of a sudden you throw in a psytrance project, both your fan base is going to be like, yo, what the fuck? And then labels, and while there's so many labels for so many different genres, labels are really looking at reliability and consistency, knowing that an artist is going to be able to have strong releases. And if you're going to be changing up every time in the beginning, you're going to have a really hard time getting a label to want to support you, because they've been seeing all of this heavy dubstep, and then you threw into psytrance, and even if you try to release it with like a more trance or psytrance label, they don't know you. They never worked with you, and all they see is that you've built your entire fan base in an entirely different demographic than what they reach.
Absolutely. So if you are going to experiment around, you should find genres that are close enough together that your fan base is going to be able to ride along in those, little changes that you might be making.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was watching something the other night with my wife and just thinking about it. And we were watching some of the older live videos by Sublime. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I was always kind of blown away by how they could have a record that would go from straight reggae to a little bit more of like an alternative rock, mm-hmm. and then just hardcore, straightforward punk, all on the same album. And I think that worked at that point. And I think that the only reason that worked is that it all went into their brand, mm-hmm. and that the people that they were actually listening to that band could listen to reggae and punk and enjoy both. And I think that that's something that kind of made me think of that question for you, right? Especially in electronic music or EDM or trap or dubstep, all those subgenres. I guess if you are listening out there and you're trying to get started in your career and really kind of get the attention of a label or build a fan base, it's probably better to stick to something that's pretty consistent, right? And try to make each release within that. And then maybe when you blow up, you can experiment around like a lot of producers do.
Absolutely. You see it with Seven Lions all the time. You're seeing it with Porter Robinson and Virtual Self.
Yep.
And then you also see times when that didn't work out as well, like Getter. Getter had a really hard time switching up his sound under his project. And there's different ways to do it. But yeah, the best way is stick in a vein, be diverse and unique in that vein, bring in other subgenres into it so that you have a little bit of flair, but stay consistent, stay kind of true to you and that sound. And then once you're big enough that people will love whatever music you make, go for it.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great answer to that question. I think coming up with your brand and trying to stick to that's really important, especially these days with marketing anything, mm-hmm. Music or anything else. So do you have any examples of artists that you're working with right now or a specific artist that you're really working hard on their projects right now?
That's staying consistent with their brand? Absolutely. We've got this artist. His name is Highland. He is this amazing future bass producer out there. He just released with Lowly Trap Nation. He's got another one coming up again. He's looking for a really good year with that. He's got some really good support all over the industry, and he's really going to make it big this year and next. And he's really made the cognitive realization and choice that this is what Highland is as a project. This is how it's going to sound. This is how it's going to look. He has all of his branding, all of his imagery. It all is very cohesive, and it is all consistent to what the Highland project is. And he's put really everything into making sure that it's successful. And he's going to be doing great things. He already is.
That's awesome. And with your experience right now, this is always a big question, and it's changed who knows how many times since I first started making music. But what is in the specific genres that you guys work in, what are the most important platforms? Let's kind of separate though.
Okay.
Let's talk about social separate from actual music platforms. Streaming,
right,
or anything else. What would you say are the most important platforms that your artists are hitting within the music realm to get their music out there?
So let's go into socials first.
Okay.
So as it stands right now, it is very important to have an Instagram presence. It is very important to have a Facebook presence. And I would say those two kind of rival each other. And then Twitter falls right underneath there, because Twitter is something that you use as an artist to connect on a more conversationalist platform with your fan base. So it's very important to have that, because on Twitter, you're getting straight retweeted, you're getting shouted out a lot more, and you can get real time, up to date what's going on. But if you're having a release, you need to make sure that everyone knows that release is coming prior to the release happening on Facebook, on Instagram, and then having day of release on all of your platforms, being like, hey, this is happening right now. Make a post, have a story, and that's really key. TikTok also can be, I hate to admit it, because I come from an advertising background. I went to school at Northern Arizona University for advertising, and we all were like, TikTok's not going to be a thing. Then we all graduated and we're like, fuck.
It is.
It's
huge for DJs too, man. I'll tell you what.
Huge.
The last year of DJing, when I was DJing out, I could just go on and see what songs were being played on TikTok, and know that if I played those at a gig, people were going to know them.
Right.
The only thing that sucks, DJ-wise, with it is that they only know that fucking 15 seconds of the song.
Dude,
so then they're asking you to replay that 15 seconds of the song. So if you're remixing and stuff like that, that's awesome. You can just find that little loop, and you know that's what's going to catch people. But it's frustrating when you're kind of open format DJ and you throw on a song. Everybody gets super stoked for 15 seconds, and then they're like, "Oh, can you play it over?"
You just keep it on channel 4 on that loop, and you just bring up the fader when you want it for the drop, and just
exactly.
to whatever else you got going on, man.
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, you're gonna have to practice your TikTok dancing at home. I don't think I can keep playing this over and over so you can master your little TikTok dance there.
Right, absolutely, and that's a really hard balance of finding music that that fans already like, and then putting them onto music that they don't even know they're going to like until you play it.
Yeah, but it's huge. It's so TikTok is so music based too, though. More than any other platform has been for a little while.
Yeah,
that's really been that big. It's super music based. So if you can get your song to catch on, with one of those things where people are just using it often for something, it's huge. I mean, even J Boog, who, my wife is Hawaiian and he's a Polynesian artist. And so there's a lot of support from that community. One of his songs blew up on TikTok, and now I hear it every day all over the place off of there. You know what I mean? And I'm like, God, that's so perfect for him. That's so awesome.
Absolutely.
That caught on like that.
Absolutely. I was working with this kind of like alt-rocky, like the Strokes meet the Muse as an audio engineer. And they've been around for 15 plus years, and they came in and they were on tour, and I was just like, so you guys have been around for 15 years. What happened? Like, how did it blow up now? And they're like, one of our songs got picked up on TikTok, dude. We went viral. Here we are.
That's so cool.
Word.
Yep. So that's definitely something to focus on if you can find a cool way to get something to catch.
Yeah,
on TikTok.
And there's full companies that focus on TikTok influencing and building your brands there. There's very few full pushes that happen that don't include TikTok these days for the bigger companies. They if they have a song that's going to be like mainstream pop supported, or just something that they think that they can blow up, then they'll throw it to TikTok, and TikTok does it themselves. They build up artists and do artist development and pay for writing camps and do all this crazy shit just so that they can have the next big hit.
Yep, that's awesome. So really, Facebook still super important.
Absolutely.
Instagram, very important. How often do you have recommended amount of posts or anything like that you're trying to get your artists to hit in a month or a week? Let's say on Instagram.
In a week, I would love it if all of my artists would post 3 times a week, stories, preferably every day, posting to their story. But 3 times a week with content about their project, about upcoming collaborations, upcoming releases, just aesthetic photos that they just go out with a ring light and a half decent camera with your friend and go find a parking structure, and go take a million photos that you can post over the next month, because it is so important for those algorithms that you are constantly posting and constantly building engagement. So
awesome. So that's perfect. So you'd say try to get a story up every day if you can. 3 times a week for Instagram. And then now we start to see, for any independent artists out there, it seems like that would be easy, but that is a ton of work. So now building that community or using a label or a music group to help you, you can see the advantage when they can help you out a little bit with some of that stuff, because it's just a lot of work. Social is so much work. And then I was just watching a YouTube video with one of the guys I really follow a lot of his stuff. And he was talking about once you actually get to a certain level, how much time it takes to reply to the comments, which you want to do. But now that you're getting all those comments coming in, it's just super time consuming to be replying back to everybody in your comments. It's really important, but all that stuff can kind of build up and take a lot of time out of your day.
Oh, seriously. I wake up with 100 plus notifications to stuff that I need to reply for myself, for artists that I'm on their pages. It definitely can become very overwhelming, and that's a kind of a hard balance, because it's so important. And especially when it comes to commenting and story posts and all that needs to be the artist, because you're trying to build a relationship where your fan base thinks and feels that they're right there next to you. They're talking to you. They're your homie. You need to build that relationship with them where they feel like they've got almost a friend in the artist and in the project, and they become invested in what happens and invested in commenting. Because if you commented on one post and he replied, oh shit, if I comment on the next one, will he reply? Oh, they did. And just keeps growing from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think
real quick, I wanted to add something to that. But as much as it can be seeming like a daunting task, especially with creating content, the key for that is if you were to every day take have to take a photo and post it that day, that'd be very stressful, because you feel like you're up against the clock. What you should do is take a bunch of photos in different locations, in different outfits, in different lighting, that you can then stock up and then push out and schedule them when they're happening. When you're working on a new track, it's very easy to create a simple boomerang. It's very easy to put your phone up and get a sample audio for it. And you can do a lot of those. If you know you're going to be working on a track for the next 3-4 days, you can build 3-4 days worth of stories and then take a couple extra like current up-to-date ones as well. So it's really about building a bank of content that you can spread out over time. That way you don't feel like you're always backed up to a clock.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. And I think I've done that where I get a photo shoot done. But I have to admit that even myself personally, I need to really work on building that content, especially during the creation process where I just don't even think about it while I'm making music, and it has to be something that you're kind of thinking about. If you just used a couple seconds here and there to grab some content, it's super helpful and it doesn't take much time. But if you do it after the fact, and you're like you said, you're always under the clock and you're trying to catch up. So,
absolutely.
So how about music platforms? Spotify, Pandora, Tidal, iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play, Beatport,
Spotify,
Juno.
and SoundCloud.
Where are we focusing at with
Spotify
artists?
and SoundCloud. Spotify is really the industry standard loved one because they're very transparent in the numbers and the streams and how you're going to be getting there and what you're going to be getting on the receiving end from like royalties and whatnot. So they're very, very open. And I don't know I know one person who refuses to use Spotify, but that's just because he loves his underground like trap music. But I don't know really anyone who doesn't use Spotify. SoundCloud's really great building up your mixes, putting anything like any bootlegs, any unofficial remixes up there, putting all your official music on there as well. But you don't, as of right now, that may change with Spotify doing this new distribution service and kind of upping their game. But as of right now, Spotify is where you see the money come in. Spotify is where you see those numbers rising. That's where bigger artists want to collaborate with you. Bigger labels are going to recognize you. So really make sure that you have successful releases on Spotify and really make sure that you have good and successful releases on SoundCloud. Put it on everywhere. Put it on, like, when you get your if you're self-releasing, use DistroKid. Put it on Apple Music. Put it on Amazon Music. Put it on wherever that you can. But focus and invest in Spotify and SoundCloud.
Absolutely. Cool. And that's kind of the focus that I've had lately as well. I think not only is Spotify where it's at right now, from all of the stuff I look at, it looks like that's going to be where it's at for a while into the future as well.
Right.
But always make sure your music is everywhere because that's ease of access. Right. It's the same thing that I have been focusing on. I used to have this problem just because I'm old, right? That I was like, and I'd post all my music, but I'd make it so that people had to leave Facebook or leave Instagram or leave whatever platform they're on to go listen to it. Right. Nobody wants to. They're on Instagram for a reason. They're hopping through their feed. They don't want to go over to another platform to go listen to that song. But if you put it right in front of their face, it's way more likely that they're going to listen to it. So right. I think that same idea has to go into your music. Like, you're just putting it on as many platforms as possible so as many people can hear it as possible. And I've had these crazy little things where during my music career, I've never hit a huge level of being a really huge artist. I mean, I've toured around the country and some stuff like that, but I've never hit that big level artist. But still, I've had people write me letters from Russia.
Oh, yeah.
Saying, dude, yeah, I listened to this song and it really helped me out and it changed my life. Or I've been listening to all your releases. You're so awesome. Or I'll end up on some kind of weird music chart in France or something like that. That's right. Just by putting it as many places as possible and trying to get it out there, because different communities are going to grab onto it. And you might get a little jump in your music somewhere that you never expected. And so now it's way easy with these with so many distribution companies out there, and it's so much more affordable to keep releasing, that there's no reason not to just get releases out there as often as possible. So
Right.
that being said, are you guys right now, for your artists, are you focusing on getting a lot of singles out there as often as possible? Are you focusing on getting EPs out there still fairly often, or getting full done albums?
So it really depends on each of our artists. When it comes to our vocalists, we want to get solid singles out with as many different producers as we can, and really build up our release calendars with successful tracks that we know are going to be well supported and going to be able to get the streams. With our producers, we're scheduling out. We like to see 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks in between releases, and then build an entire release calendar around that. And we have a few that we're working on, EPs and bigger projects with, but we can't really go into those just quite yet. Those are still secret, but follow the Paragon Music Group on all of our platforms, and you'll see it go down.
Awesome.
But albums we're not really focusing on albums, because when it comes to albums, you really need to have a lot of support to make sure that every song does successful, which is very hard. And successful is, hundreds of thousands, 500,000, 1 million plus streams on Spotify. That's what success is when it comes to releasing. And so if you're releasing a track every week, I know that was something that you were saying that you were doing. That could be really good for just getting your name out there and proving that you're building that content. But then you have to every week put so much time, effort, and really money into like playlisting and blog support and promotion to get that song to be successful before the next song comes.
Yeah, that I've noticed that, and it's something that I wanted to try out because I think it's perfect. I was considering myself as almost starting from scratch because I'd taken a couple years off.
Right.
And I was just DJing a lot and not doing any of my own music. So it's kind of, you're restarting, right? So you got to get it back in people's face. And the more content you have just hitting people in the face, if they're seeing it every week, then it's going to get them reinterested. But to actually promote a song, you don't have time, right? You gotta kind of, it's almost like I think the way I'm thinking about it is I'm going to get all this content out there, and then I'm going to see which songs kind of stick with people, and then I'm going to re-promote those songs later because those are the ones that really kind of made an impact. But then you're missing out if you're really trying to get it to hit on Spotify and stuff. It's really important how many numbers you're getting in that first couple of weeks of your release. I'd say once you start building that momentum, you definitely need to slow down and let's really focus on putting out all the different steps. And I know most of the different things that I have studied or that I've done in the past, you've got 10 to 20 steps that you want to get done for each release. And it's really important that you get all those steps in place, and you want to start well out from the release. So, So I think you're totally right. And that's been my experience, is that when you're trying to release every week, luckily I have 3 different artist names. So I can take a break from one and let's go make some, down tempo and chill house shit for a couple weeks. And then let's go do some hip hop, and then let's go do some dance music. I can kind of mix it up with the different artist names. But if I was just focusing on one artist and trying to release every week, I don't know that it would be sustainable for a long period of time. But it's a good way to build some momentum.
Yeah, the word sustainable is the perfect word for it, because it really isn't. It's when you're focusing on a singular project and you're focusing on a singular sound, which is really the way I suggest doing it in the long run. Just because you're when it comes to it, you have to make sure that you can afford mixing, mastering. If you have, if you can mix it yourself, you're doing great. If you can master it yourself to a proper level, which is not a lot of artists really do master their own music, and that's honestly a good thing. As a fellow engineer, don't master your own stuff. Have somebody have fresh ears come on it, but then you're also paying for artwork. You're also paying for any assets. You have to pay for social media promotion, like sponsored posts. You have to get playlisting support, which is very important. There's so many things that you're investing money into that if you're trying to do that every week, unless you have a stupid amount of money, and even if you did have a stupid amount of money, drag it out, put more money into each release over a more spread out time, and you'll end up seeing that success a lot more.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the other part that I was talking about is over time of being an independent musician. I got my first degree in studio recording and worked in a whole bunch of recording studios, right?
Right.
Then I did a lot of live sound and sound tech stuff. So I was kind of paying the bills by DJing and doing that.
Right.
Then I started a record label. And this is funny because this teaches musicians how you kind of either have to learn how to diversify to a ridiculous level, or you do have to just say, okay, this is what I can't do myself and I need to pass it on. And unfortunately, I'm a fucking wild man and I always decide that I'm just going to figure out how to do it myself. So I had a record label. I was doing all the graphic design and all the web stuff because I didn't have enough money to pay for it. I got really into it. I went back to school, got a degree in web development, web design, and then a degree in graphic design. And so now all of a sudden I have all these degrees just excuse me, basically so I could keep putting music out. And I use all those skills every day and with every project, but it's kind of ridiculous to take all that on. And when you're doing that and you're trying to release music up, and that's where the sustainability kind of gets rough, when it's like you're making all the artwork, you're doing all the recording, you're doing all the mixing, all the mastering, you're doing all that. So sometimes it's better to take a step back. Maybe I need to use these funds to get that mastering done, and then I can do the other parts of it. So I think, but one of the big things that I'm going to be focusing on with this podcast is diversifying yourself as a musician, diversifying yourself as a DJ to have as many skills as possible. And that's how you can other stuff like this pandemic and different stuff that's going to come up is by having, if all you can do is go into the studio and make a beat, but somebody else has to be there to mix it and record it and everything.
Exactly.
You're not going to be a weapon at that point.
100%. This is something that we have, especially since COVID hit, we have been bumping up all the production levels and qualities of our artists. If they were paying every time for someone to mix their song and record their song, if they were paying for studio time, well, one, a lot of studios are closed. And for two, that adds up in money. There's always a really amazing feeling and experience being in the studio and working on it. But if you don't know how to mix your own tracks, it's going to be so much harder to get feedback from a label, from your collaborators. When you're on opposite ends of the country or the world working on a song, and they say, "I need you to drop down the snare 2 dB," and you're like, all right, let me tell my engineer to go do that. Being able to be self-sufficient on your recording, on your mixing, knowing how to master is great, because it's always nice to have a pre-master whenever you're sending off to labels, and then the label can say, all right, final master it, and either you've got an engineer or if you know how to do it. And then also, what a lot of people, I don't think they realize, is that's a way for you to make money. If you're able to mix and master and record your own stuff, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't. who doesn't know how. That's why Upwork and Fiverr and Sound Better and all these different platforms exist, is because they need someone who knows how to do it. So if you know how to do it, you can pay for your entire project off of helping other people and being their engineer or being their producer or being whatever you need for that. So it's very important.
Exactly. That's how I paid my way through my first degree, and I DJ'd every night, and I recorded and mixed and stuff every day for whatever artist, whether it was myself or whoever was coming into the studio that we had. And that was, that was all that I could do at that point. And I think that is even, there's so many more opportunities now by doing it online and through this type of services that you were talking about, where it's almost like, do you want to make a living in the music industry, or do you want to get that day job doing something completely unrelated and then just work on music at night? And that, sometimes I've done a lot of shitty jobs in the music industry, but at least I was mainly in the music industry the whole time, and everywhere I worked I was picking up some kind of skills that were going to help me in the future.
Skills, meeting people you never knew were important, networking, like exactly.
And I think so that's a really good point too. And for anybody that's an up and comer, find out the other ways that you might be an asset. I know I was working with a hip hop artist a little while ago, and I was, he started getting pretty good at that stuff, and now I watch him all the time, and he's recording and mixing stuff for all of his different artists and friends and everybody that he works with. And I'm like, that's perfect. Now you get to focus on music instead of using that time learning how to run a cash register.
Right. Or serving tables, or as a server, because in the end, you're going to, half the time, you're going to be doing more work for less money, or more work for the same amount of money than what you're going to be growing if you're working in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not in the industry, that's not a bad thing, and that's not something you should be ashamed of. And sometimes people, I know so many people that I used to make music with that had a family, and now they got to do something else. But really, if you can, and you can build that, then it's just, even just a little bit at a time. I mean, maybe you could get that day job down to a part-time and use the rest of that time. Then, I think that should be a really big focus for a lot of independent musicians.
100%. I started off as
a
street promoter for a club, selling tickets for a commission while I worked at a boat harbor, renting boats and kayaks to people. And I've worked at 7-Eleven as working the cash register while I was trying to make it as a manager at as an up and coming venue nightclub. 100%. It's as nice and as beautiful as it is to just say, you want to make music, quit your whole life and job and go jump into it. That's not reasonable, especially right now.
Yeah.
That's, if you have the means to do that, do it. But make sure that you're realistic and that you have a firm sense of your surroundings and what your responsibilities are. And that way that because if you end up just trying to jump in and do 100% priority right off the bat, and you don't have the time, resources, energy, or even the knowledge on how to do that, you're going to end up being way worse off than if you just move forward in the right steps and start basically going from, I'm investing 20% of my day or my month or my life into music, into the music, so I can get to 30%, so I get to 50%, so I get to 60%, so I get to 100%. And then instead of just being balls to the walls, fuck it, straight eat it, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen people do that, and usually they're going to burn out really quick. Or they're going to get caught up in partying too much or something. You got to have an investment in the fact that it's a business, and that once you have that investment in it, then you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to party this away because I'm investing a whole bunch of my time into this and my money. And So I think that's an awesome point, and that's very motivational to show that I've done all kinds of shit outside the music industry, but I have worked. I remember my first studio job. The way I got to stay there was I cleaned the nastiest fucking toilets. They didn't even ask me to. I mopped the whole place. I cleaned everything, went into the bathroom, cleaned everything. And that made a way bigger statement than the fact I knew how to cut tape or I knew how to mic the drums. You know what I mean? So I think that those, if you want to make it as an independent musician or make it in the music industry, it still takes a super good work ethic, no matter what. It's 100. An industry. So
100.
So that's another thing I want to focus on. So I have another question for you here. Shoot. If somebody's listening to this podcast and they're like, wow, this guy Jonathan is awesome. Paragon Music Group sounds awesome. I make the kind of music that they're looking for. What would you say they should do that would catch your guys' attention? What kind of artists are you looking for? What steps could they take to grab your attention when they started submitting some music to you guys?
So when we're looking for artists on our roster, we're looking for those people who are now ready to commit to making it. So we work with, like, I've been in recent situations that have been really, really rough, where we've had producers reach out to us and they're like, we have an entire private SoundCloud playlist of songs that we're working on. We have a budget for this, for the vocals. We have all these things stepped and ready out. And we're ready to go forward in it, and we know, and we're able to sustain this. And then all of a sudden we get into it, like, sweet, this is awesome. Then we get into it, and like 2 months later, we realize that they're in two different foreign countries. They don't have the budget that they're looking that they originally set. They are scrapping every song that they were that they had shown us and going with an entirely new direction. You really have to be committed, and we're always we really like working with the up and comers and that development. So the biggest thing is you can always just reach out to us. Do you mind if I drop my email just so people can?
No, yeah, absolutely. You can say it in here, and then I'll make sure that I post it when I put this up online as well.
So yeah, my email, guys, is jonathan@theparagonmusicgroup.com. My Instagram is you can just reach us at the Paragon Music Group right there. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, Jonathan Dewitt. Any of those, reach me a message, and I can just forward you straight to my email if you have any questions, if you think you're ready for that. Because we're a company that prides ourselves in we don't bullshit. If you're not ready, we're not going to tell you, oh fuck you, you're not ready. We'll tell you what's missing, and we're very supportive of it. But we want to be accessible. We want people to reach out to us and ask those questions. So by all means, shoot me an email. I'll respond back with all that. But yeah, make sure that you have a budget. Make sure that you have tracks in the work that are already completed or mostly completed. You have the ability to put time into those tracks and into those collaborations. And you own as much of the production and the creation as possible. So you're not ghost producing, you're not ghost writing, you're not having ghost writers, you're not sending it off to engineers, you're not to do all this stuff for you, because you're splitting so much of a very small pie already of your work that if we're trying to work with artists, we're not trying to work with artists and then they're ghost producers and then they're ghost engineers and then they're ghost master and then they're ghost and then they're ghost and then they're ghost. We're trying to work with artists.
Yeah, absolutely. And there you go again. You got to diversify and you got to have the skills to do as much of it as possible. and that's even important in that realm when you're trying to get picked up. If you can take most of the steps for your own music, then it's going to be something that's going to grab your guys' attention, because you don't have to go through all the steps of trying to figure out who's going to be engineering it, there's a different engineer for the vocals than there was for the production, and now we got
when you've got the
writer and all that in there.
The producer's engineer talking with the vocalist engineer, talking to the label's engineer. You're like, what in the fuck am I looking at right here?
Yeah. Awesome. So, like I said, I'll also put Jonathan's information into the content about this podcast episode. So I'll make sure that I get all of the links that you guys can get in contact with him. But it's been very helpful and eye-opening, and I think motivating to talk to you. You have a lot of great information, especially coming from a marketing advertising kind of background like you do. I can tell that you have a lot of knowledge in that realm, and that's always been something that I had to learn. I mean, I am never going to hit the level of somebody who's gone to school for it like you have, but I definitely am going to have to pick that up. And any independent musician, not only should you have a good understanding of all the different things that go into mixing, mastering, making music, producing music, releasing it, but marketing and promoting it, even if you're going with a label or you're going with somebody that's going to be helping you out with that, you should have a base understanding of it, because it's going to help you to create the kind of content that they need to help you to succeed.
Right. And labels aren't going to want to work with you if they haven't seen that you already are putting in the work, because labels are releasing with 100+ different artists. And if you show up, unless you've got the next hitter, and even then, most of the time they're like, well, if you've got the next hitter, but it's going to land flat, why do we want this song to land flat? So it's so important to know marketing. And Bear, I'd love to talk to you about marketing on another time and go more in depth in that, either just here on the podcast or in between, because I'm always down to help people know those skills to be successful marketers. That way I don't have to do it for you.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I'd love to have you come back on and we could talk more in depth about the marketing and stuff. And I think that to get the attention of a label, you're going to have to market yourself and understanding it enough to get that momentum to get them interested in you. So you're going to have to do it yourself unless you got a huge budget. And I'd rather spend my money making good music than having somebody market it. So
that is the mentality to have. Spend your money on the music. Learn all the other stuff. Spend your money on the music.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jonathan. I'll get this put together, get it up online, make sure that everybody has your contact information.
Yes.
Once again, this is from the First Drop podcast. My name is Bear Cole from First Drop Music, and our goal is just to make sure that you guys have more information as DJs, independent musicians, anybody that's really trying to come up in any kind of realm involved with music, and just give you guys more tools, more tips. And of course, on the next episode, I'm going to be telling a wonderful story about working in the studio when DMX and Puff Daddy came in, and I was woken up at 3 a.m. to run down to open the studio. So that'll be the next episode. It's going to be a pretty funny story. I've got lots of dumb, funny tour stories and stuff like that are from working in the studio that I'm going to be telling. But just to give people an idea of what it's actually like to work in the music industry, it's not always as pretty as people think, but it's fucking beautiful how ugly it is. So
yes, 100. That's the word right there. And Bear, thank you so much for having me on. This has been an absolute blast. And I'll be looking forward to that because I love DMX.
Yeah, I worked with him for a little while when he was in Phoenix, and I can't tell them all on the podcast, so we'll have to get together so I can tell you some of the real good ones.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for talking with us. That's Jonathan Dewitt from Paragon Music Group. And thank you guys for listening to From the First Drop. My name is Bear Cole. Peace. Thank you for listening to From the First Drop. My name is Bear Cole.
If you want to learn more, just look up First Drop Music anywhere you go online. That's one ST Drop DROP Music. Look it up. FirstDropMusic.com, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you go online. We're going to bring you more about independent music, music distribution, how to be a DJ, mobile DJing, and just music in general. I hope you guys come back to listen to more. We're out. Peace.